I believe this is the last section actually in Unit E, okay? Which is why I put the quiz and test dates on the board. Okay. I'm sorry?
The notes.
What notes?
Those are notes.
No, they're not. Okay. All right, so we are going to still be graphing, but we're going to use a different method. Okay? Y equals mx plus b is always the easiest method, but sometimes it's not easy to get the equation in y equals mx plus b form. Or sometimes you may have something like y equals 3/4 x minus 1/3. Well, that's kind of a hard y-intercept to graph, isn't it? Not to mention, once you get that point, counting up 3 from there, and then over 4, it gets to be a pain in the butt. So sometimes that's not useful. So we can use this method using x and y intercepts. When an equation is given in standard form, do you know what standard form is? Anyone know? That is standard form right there. Okay. Standard form, ax plus by equals c, and a, b, and c are all numbers. Okay. The x-intercept is the point on the line. Let's think about this for a minute. If I have a graph, this would be my x-intercept, correct? Yes? What do I know about that point? Well, I know that point is some x value, comma, 0, right? So it's like 5, 0 or something like that. The x-intercept is the point where the line crosses the x-axis. And then to find the intercept, we substitute in 0 for y, because it's the point where the y value is 0. So let me state that another way. To find the x-intercept, make y 0. Okay? The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. And that would be up here. And that's the point 0, comma, something. So to find the y-axis, you're going to substitute, the y-intercept, you're going to substitute 0 for x. So let me state that a little bit easier. To find the x-intercept, make y 0. To find the y-intercept, make x 0. You make the opposite letter 0 and solve it, and that'll give you your intercept. So, if I have an equation like this, do you see that ax minus by, or plus by, equals c? Yeah? So let's see. If I want to find the x-intercept, I plug in 0 for y. Does that make sense? So what is negative 5 times 0? Isn't that just 0? It just drops out. So x equals negative 25. So my x-intercept is a point. It crosses the x-axis at negative 25. And then the y value is 0 because that's what I substituted in for y. Does that make sense? Let me zoom in because that's kind of small. Better? So far, so good? How do I find the y-intercept? Make x 0. So going back to the original equation, 0 minus 5y equals negative 25. Well, the 0 doesn't, it can just drop out, can't it? So I have negative 5y equals negative 25. How do I get y? Divide by negative 5, and y equals what? Positive 5. That's my y-intercept. I got that when I made x 0, so 0 is my x value, 5 is my y value. So here is my x-intercept, and here is my y-intercept. Please tell me that's pretty easy. So in number 2, if I wanted to find my x-intercept, what do I need to do? Make y 0. So that would be 8x minus 0 equals 5, right? And I know that when I get my answer, I'm making y 0, so the y component of my answer has to be 0. What is 8x minus 0? Isn't it just 8x equals 5? Divide both sides by what? Does that divide nicely? So I just get x equals 5/8. I don't need to do anything with it. Just call it 5/8, and that's my x-intercept. You find the y-intercept. What do I know about the y-intercept? The x value is 0, right? So I plug in 8 times 0 minus y equals 5. What is 8 times 0? 0. So negative y equals 5. What do I do? Divide by negative 1. And what does y equal? So I fill in my negative 5. And that's my y-intercept. Can I show you another way to find it out? So, when I want to find my x-intercept, and I make y 0, doesn't that always make this y term disappear? Because 3 times 0 is 0. So some people do, the cover method. My fingers aren't small enough to cover it up. If I want to find the x-intercept, and I make y 0, I just cover that up and I solve this equation right here. Does that make sense? Because that's what it would be when y equals 0. So 2x equals negative 9, divide by 2, x equals negative 9/2. So what's my x-intercept? Negative 9/2, comma 0. How would I find the y-intercept? Cover up the x and solve this equation. Well, this equation is 3y equals negative 9, divide by 3, and y equals negative 3. So what's my y-intercept? 0, negative 3. So that's a little bit of a shortcut way, I guess, if you want, that you can solve it also. I would like you to take a minute and the remaining 3 problems here, find your 2 intercepts. You can either use the plug-in method like I did on 1 and 2, or you can use the cover-up method that I did in number 3. All right. So if I did the cover-up method, and I covered the 5y, I have 2x equals negative 20, correct? Dividing by 2, and I get x equals negative 10. What did I just find? Which intercept? X-intercept, and what is it? Negative 10, 0. Then to cover up my x, and I have 5y equals negative 20. Again, why does the covering up work? Because when you substitute 0, that term drops out anyways. So I'm just covering up what ends up being 0. So if I divide by 5, I get y equals negative 4. What intercept is that? And what's the point? Is it 0, negative 4, or negative 4, 0? Because negative 4, 0 is a point on the x-axis, isn't it? All right. Next one. This one seems pretty easy. If I cover up y, my fingers are too big for this. If I cover up y, I have x equals negative 1. What did I just find? X-intercept. And what's that point? Negative 1, 0. And if I cover up x, I have my y-intercept. Y equals negative 1. And what's that point? 0, negative 1. That's my y-intercept. So, I'll do this one using the other method. So if I want to find my x-intercept, I make y 0. So I'd plug in 0 right there. So that gives me 3x. That term drops out, right? Because 2 times 0 is 0. Equals 4. Now what am I going to do? Divide by 3. Does 4 divide by 3 nicely? So I have x equals 4/3. I just found my x-intercept. And what's the point? Comma 0. And then to find the y-intercept, I would make x 0. So 3 times 0 plus 2y. Oops, don't need a parentheses. Well, what's 3 times 0? 0, it drops out. 2y equals 4. Divide by 2, and I get y equals what? 2. So what is my y-intercept? 0, 2. Get the idea? Now let's turn it to the back, and I'm going to show you how you can use this to graph. So, get out your straight edge, your ruler, your ID card, whatever it is. Okay, in order to graph a line, we need a minimum of 2 points. When we're doing y equals mx plus b, we like to have 3 points if we can. But at a very minimum, we need 2 points. Well, guess what? I found 2 points for each of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find those 2 intercepts and then draw the line through them. Okay? When you have an equation in standard form, which is our ax plus by equals c, it is easy to use the intercepts to graph. So, starting with this one, this isn't one of the ones we did on the back, is it? No. Starting with this one, what is my x-intercept? What is my x-intercept here? 1/3. So that means my x-intercept would be 1/3, comma 0, right? Where's the point 1/3, 0? Wouldn't it be like, it's not quite halfway, it's like here-ish? Okay, I can estimate that. Thank goodness I don't have to counterize over run from there. What's my y-intercept? If I cover up there, it's just 1, isn't it? So what's the point? 0, 1. That's a point I can plot right there. All I need to do is draw the line that goes through those 2 points, and I've graphed my line. So let's go over to number 8. What is my x-intercept here? If I cover up the y's, what do I get? X equals negative 2. So that would be the point -2, 0. Can I plot that? Yep. What would my y-intercept be? 3. So that would be the point 0, 3. I can plot 0, 3. Can I draw my line? Easy peasy? You try 9 and 10. All right, what's my x-intercept here? 0 divided by 4 is? What's my y-intercept? 0. Crud. I only have 1 point. Can I draw a line with 1 point? Nope. Because who knows what direction it goes, right? So what do I need to do here? I need to take it, I'm going to need to put it in y equals mx plus b form so I can find out where to go from here. So I'm going to subtract 4x. What is 0 minus 4x? Isn't it negative 4x? Divide by negative 3. So I get y equals negative 4 over negative 3 would be positive 4/3 x. So yes, my y-intercept is 0. That's fantastic. What's my slope? Up 4 over 3. I have to do that way because both the intercepts are at 0. So if my intercepts are both at the origin, this intercept method doesn't help me, but every other one it's pretty quick. All right, what's my x-intercept here? Negative 3, 0. What's my y-intercept? 0, 3. So 0, 3, and negative 3, 0. There's my graph. Easy peasy? Okay, the last questions. We are determining whether they would be linear or nonlinear. What do I mean by nonlinear? Not something my ruler would be able to trace, right? There's a bend in it or something. The general rule for if something is linear or nonlinear has to do with your variables x and y. They both have to be to the first power. What does it mean to have x to the first power? Do you ever see that written? Sorry, you can't see it. Do you ever see that written? X to the first? No, we just write it as x, right? And y to the first is just y. So in other words, I can't have any exponents on my x and y's. Other rules, I can't have them in the bottom of denominator or in the bottom of fractions in the denominators. I can't have them under radicals. They just have to be a plain x and a plain y in order for it to be linear. So, is number 11 linear? Yes or no? No, because there's something funky happened to the x there, right? That makes it non-linear. What about number 12? X is to the first power, y is to the first power. We have linear, which means if I needed to, I could get that into y equals mx plus b form, or I could identify my intercepts. What about number 13, linear or nonlinear? Non-linear. See the funkiness happening to my x there? Nonlinear. What about here, linear or nonlinear? As soon as I have an exponent there, that makes it non-linear. What about here? Y is to the first power, x is to the first power. Yeah, there's distributive property and stuff, but my x and my y are fine, so we have something that is linear. And the last one, y nonlinear. Even though this is to the first power and this is to the first power, in the bottom of a fraction is an issue. Okay, easy peasy? All right, here comes your homework. Happy studying.